We have another, excuse me, another virgin in the house. I'm overwhelmed to hear the vapors leaking out of me. We've had so many virgins tonight. This is a sacred evening. I met this gentleman last night at the Ritz. And those of you who didn't make it, and some of us did, saw one of the most splendiferous acts of genius as a duo between Mona Toscano, who is the poet laureate of Newburgh, and Neil Alexander, who is an absolute drop-dead brilliant musician. They took the air out of the room. You heard not one cough, not one distraction. I swear to you, nothing. And suspended it for almost an hour. It was breathtaking. Well, at the conclusion of that, I met this young man, and we got into dialogue, and lights were on, somebody was home, and we were really grooving on our conversation. I said, well, why don't you come tomorrow night? He said, okay, I will. So it gives me absolute great pleasure, Jonathan Hunte. Would you grace us, sir? Side of the river, ladies and gentlemen.
For short people. This is actually my very first poetry reading, and it's such a pleasure to be among such great talent. I hope I can live up to what happened here this evening.
You will. You will continue being with us.
The first poem that I'm going to read is called Dread, and it's sort of autobiographical. We need not be afraid to face our fears. Some are so reluctant it brings them to tears. Do they hold me in awe while I get the stares? Is it something that I said why they call me dread? Peace and love are the topics that I teach. The lessons of the Creator is what I preach. Judging their reactions to my message, there must be a breach. Is it something that I said why they call me dread? Dreadlocks is how I wear my hair. It's symbolic of my culture, should you care. Engage in the formidable task of unmasking the smear. Is it something that I said why they call me dread? An egalitarian cause is my ultimate goal. Champion the rights of people whose stories are never told. Bringing the trodden and oppressed into the fold. Is it something that I said why they call me dread? Know thyself and set your mind and body free. No need to copy you when I can be the best me. Follow your own path to lead to your destiny. Is it something that I said why they call me dread? Thank you. You guys are clapping to humor me.
I'll make you feel like, hey, man.
Say it again now.
Hey, man.
Okay. This next one is called On the Edge of Nowhere. I open my eyes and what do I see? My heart and my soul in depravity. Every step I take, degradation in the wake. Take solace in knowing that I'm unscathed. Embraced by sadism, sanctuary adore. Escaping monogamy, rituals we abhor. Orifices marinated, waiting to be penetrated. The splendor in deceit. I'm unscathed. Morality, mortality, nobody gives a damn. Government and religion are part of the scam. Self-preservation we treasure, pursuing optimum pleasure. Heart blackened by indulgence. I'm unscathed. The product of romance, a source of her sustenance, feeding the addiction without conviction, ingested in abundance. I am unscathed. Breathe the frigid air. The path into the abyss is clear. The seduction is your calling, reverently applauding the fallen, the excrement of our time. I am unscathed. This next one is called Primal Instinct. The scent of flesh that tastes familiar intrigues the predator, and so I rise. The scent of flesh that tastes familiar stimulates the hunt as the prey dies. The warmth of flesh that smells familiar invokes a desire vanquished by pride. The warmth of flesh that smells familiar scalds the soul as the sensations subside. Salivating, meditating, impervious to pain. Digital erotica sets the new plane. Enveloped by cyberlove, no cause for disdain. Promulgating abstinence, no one can complain. The sight of flesh that feels familiar nourishes the yearnings of wanting eyes. The sight of flesh that feels familiar brings satisfaction with no compromise. The sound of flesh that looks familiar throbs to a beat of a pulsating gland. The sound of flesh that looks familiar echoes songs we all understand. Salivating, meditating, impervious to pain. Digital erotica sets the new plane. Enveloped by cyberlove, no cause for disdain. Promulgating abstinence, no one can complain. The sight of flesh that sounds familiar is the prelude to undying passion. The taste of flesh that sounds familiar, the vice employed without compassion. Now, being that it's two things happening, today it's Valentine's Day and it's Black History Month, I think it's probably pertinent that I do something in that vein. So I guess my first one would be about love. And it's called, I can do Love So Elusive or The Union of Strangers. Well, Love So Elusive is a hateful type thing, so we'll roll with The Union of Strangers. They came together on a joyous occasion and approached each other without hesitation. From different worlds they found common ground to initiate camaraderie anticipated to be sound. They probed each other, both body and mind, not knowing what to expect, not knowing what to find. They drew a conclusion, but it had no name. It embarked on love, destroying the game. The union of the strangers was expedited by sex, but shrouded in secrecy, it was very complex. Each not knowing what the collaboration had to hold, the union of the strangers was irrefutably bold. They orchestrated an adventure, it was mere delight, like a cool summer breeze in the sun's emanating light. A soap opera, one called it, as they stared in each other's eyes, but there's no sorry script, no party will ever be compromised. The union had a meaning we all understand. The pleasures of man and woman went hand in hand. As the great book professes the story of Adam and Eve, I hope to awaken the disillusioned and give tolerance to Adam and Steve. And as the friends parted, this was never said. If there's a fruit of the union, it should not end up dead. Life extinguished without a motive or gain is the fallacy of the insipid, the method of the insane. If you choose to question the veracity of my words, disregard my story, even say it's for the birds, and then seek out the strangers and heed what they say, the venture was worthwhile. They had no other way. Okay. And I'll do one for Black History Month. And this one, it's kind of lengthy. And it's called Questions for Africa's Progeny. What makes you different from the human beings of this earth? African, with your dark skin, what are you really worth? Who allowed them to steal your land and forced you to be colonized? What have you done to be so hated and despised? What about your history and your contributions to society? Why, when it comes to your people, we hear of impropriety? Why does the world think you're poor when you have an abundance of resources? Who is fabricating these malicious lies, and what are their sources? As it pertains to your rule, what happened to self-determination and autonomy? Why are they meddling in your affairs and manipulating your economy? Where did the weapons come from to resolve political conflicts? Why would you fall for their ruse and heinous conniving tricks? Who covets the melanin in your skin and claims you're inferior? Do they really believe a Eurocentric standard of beauty is superior? Who would get a butt lift or inject collagen in their lips? What do you think is being imitated, or who are they trying to eclipse? Were you aware that sub-Saharan Africans have no Neanderthal chromosomes? Does that make them the purest Homo sapiens right down to their bones? Do we want to adopt the practice of comparing the artificial division of race? Will it achieve the goal of solidifying and unifying your space? Why would anyone refute the evidence that puts international morality on trial? Wasn't it posed at the League of Nations, but its efforts were futile? Why, when liberation is mentioned, you're made to feel like you're living in a bubble? Who calls themselves your friend and refuses to embrace your struggle? What happened to the martyrs that spoke of unifying your nation? Who is always behind their demise and orchestrating their elimination? Where are the memorials to your scientists, inventors, and heroes? Do you believe that you lived in a world filled with nothing but zeros? Does it mean that you have lost the war if another tells your story? If you are a descendant of an enslaved people, does it mean you have no glory? Can someone give you freedom if you're born with an unalienable right? Will the monetary system be the new means of colonization without a fight? Are you begging for approval, validation, acceptance, or a connection? Do you understand that you're an essential part of the fabric that deserves protection? If this was a homogeneous world, would these inequalities still exist? Does history tell us that man's nature of jealousy and suspicion will persist? Are you aware that you can never slack in determination? Do you realize a united Africa is a very powerful affirmation? What will be the next charge presented to this generation? Will it be one of suppressing hate and eradicating indignation? I just want to do one more. I got a lot, but it's just one more. I know it's been a long evening. This one, yes, I will enjoy that. This one is called American Eugenics. Eugenics had been practiced throughout the duration of the American slave trade. Slaves were treated like livestock, and good breeders had it made. It was not until slavery was abolished under the Emancipation Proclamation that the aristocrats became concerned with reprisal in the nation. How do you keep approximately 4 million people from getting their just due? The school of thought was to keep their numbers limited and monitor what they do. We had not too long ended a civil war, and there were many mouths to feed. Hence the birth of the American Eugenics Society to control how they breed. Laws were enacted around the country that ensured eugenicist goals were met. If you were accused of being feeble-minded, that was a cause to fret. Because the law had no legal definition and could be applied in any way, something as simple as spitting on the sidewalk meant forced sterilization was the price to pay. Eugenicists operated in many facets of society that made it hard to escape their grip. If you were a person of color, you walked the straight and narrow and hoped you didn't slip. God forbid you couldn't make ends meet and sought assistance from the state. As part of the package, in order to eat, you were served for sterilization on your plate. The society was so proficient that their guidance was sought worldwide. So much so that Nazi Germany and the Third Reich chose them to confide. This business became so scandalous, and its organizers understood. To remain subversive in America, the name was changed to Planned Parenthood. Prior to abortion being legal, whites accounted for 87% of the operations performed. Post Roe v. Wade, women of color dominated this number because they were misinformed. Socialized that if you cannot afford a child, it was okay to make abortion your first choice. But the sad reality is that abortion simply eliminates another voice. In nature, no animal voluntarily kills their offspring, so what happened in this case? Attacked on every level, even the mother's womb is not a safe place. Blacks represent approximately 12% of the population, showing no growth at this pace. Abortion, as it's practiced, is not in the best interest of the black race.